agreement, but they didn't have to. Well, I got to say, the state of the province, province finances, as left by the previous government, certainly meant that they did have to, which was us. And I have to say, if the previous administration didn't feel that that this was an issue, they wouldn't have put it in. But I think they looked at this realistically and said, $100 million, we just may not be able to come up with that. So we better allow ourselves a mechanism to get out of this agreement, and they did. So, Mr. Speaker, the finances of the province certainly didn't make it possible for the province to continue. But I will say this, that the municipalities came out of that MOU in better condition than they went into it. So certainly they had a bit of a bump. And I want I'd like the people who are listening to be aware that the honourable member for Preston, who spoke to this, was a member of the Liberal government that put the service exchange in place with the municipalities that actually resulted in the municipalities having to pay the education tax, the debt on the housing authorities, and the correction services. So the previous Liberal government actually set up the service exchange that forced the municipalities to make these payments, and now for some reason he has a problem with that. I would say is a bit hypocritical. The thing that the member would be aware of, he was a municipal councillor, he should be aware of, is that the municipality, the HRM, does not budget the money for the educational tax as part of their process around delivering services to their citizens. In other words, if they're talking about collecting garbage, cleaning, plowing of streets, whatever, that money is not part of that budget. In other words, it didn't take away from money that's budgeted for those services. This is a flow-through. So they know they're not using it, and it doesn't go to the general revenue of the province. It goes to the school boards, not to the general revenue of the province. And the member opposite, who spoke to this, should be aware of that. He was a cabinet minister and a minister of the Liberal government that bought in this service exchange, and being a councillor, he should have been aware of exactly how this worked, Mr. Speaker. So now, he has spoken in this House on more than one occasion around the change of the MOU and how that has forced municipalities to raise taxes. This year, the HRM actually would have lowered their rate except for a fee they put on for cleaning of sidewalks. So we have a cap in this province on assessment, and it's around CPI. 3% roughly, whatever. Assessment went up by 6%, basically across the province. So even with a cap, there is this increase in assessment, and the HRM felt that they could actually lower their rate so that taxes for people didn't go up. And the only charge they put on was an additional charge to clean the sidewalks, because that was an issue, if members might remember hearing that in the media, about the people complaining about the level of service for cleaning sidewalks. And so this goes completely opposite to the condition that the member tries to speak to, that municipal units have had to raise taxes in order to develop or deliver service. Totally not true. And I'm going to say 2 years ago, the municipalities as a group across the province had about $140 million that they had access to in their own accounts. So the question of whatever other things they may want to do is purely up to that municipal unit. The province, and I want to also mention, because the member may be aware of this, I'm not sure if he is, but certainly people listening. Once upon a time, the cost for education was borne by the local government, not by the province. And I'm not sure if it was in the Reagan government or just which government. I think it may have been the Reagan government. That changed. And now, instead of the local governments covering 100% of the cost of education, they cover about 15%. So he talks about this downloading by the province onto the municipalities because of this educational cost. The province took that away from them years ago and has left them with about 15% that they have to cover, which is one of the lowest percentages in the country. Some of them are up to 25 or 35% of the educational cost is borne by the municipal units. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the cost to the local government has been taken up 85% of it by the province. And if the member for Yarmouth was to review Liberal government history, it would be very helpful for him to have some notion of exactly the events that have gotten the province to this place. And it was, by and large, by the previous Liberal government under Premier John Savage. So they entered into the service exchange, and actually, and the way that was done, thank you, Mr. Speaker, the way that was done was on the basis that the municipalities would not have to pick up more costs. In other words, they used to do the community services work, and the province was not going to leave them more burdened by this exchange. So in other words, the amount of costs that the municipality took on for the services that they did compared to what the province took away from the municipality was supposed to be that neither party was unduly burdened, that the municipalities were not to have significant cost increase. And so I know that I'm getting close to the end of my time, Mr. Speaker. So I have to say I'm really glad that the member opposite raised this debate. I think that for people listening, they might have gleaned some pertinent information that this is not as a hardship brought on by the NDP government. This is just following the guidelines of an MOU that previous administrations had signed on for, and since the finances of the province wouldn't allow this to go forward, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of Nova Scotians, the province moved away from it, and the municipal units actually came out of the MOU in better shape than they entered into it, Mr. Speaker. So with that, I'll take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now recognize the member for Cape Breton North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's my pleasure to stand here this evening and take part in this debate about the MOU and the downloading on the municipalities of some educational costs. Mr. Speaker, we've had some good debate in this legislature over the last little while around municipalities and the struggles they're facing in this day and age and under this NDP government. And we've had a lot of talk about the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. And I heard the member opposite just in his speaking talking about the municipalities, how they didn't raise their tax rates, and they actually, the Halifax Regional Municipality raised their tax rates only for cleaning sidewalks. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Cape Breton Regional Municipality didn't raise their taxes this year, but they also had to put in their budget that there would be no paving, and in their capital plan this year, there'd be no paving in the municipality whatsoever. And when I spoke about that, when I asked about that, I was told that because of the tearing up of the MOU, or so-called opting out of the MOU, that the Cape Breton Regional Municipality had to add $2 million to the education, to the school board, in order for the school board to survive. So, although they're saying it's not hurting municipalities, I beg to differ for the CBRM, because if any one of the members drive through Cape Breton on some of the roads that are there, Mr. Speaker, some of those roads are deplorable, as you would know yourself from driving out through areas of your municipality. And this capital plan for the CBRM would put a lot more people to work in the area, which would have raised up the tax base a little better, which would have allowed us to do a little bit more. But that's gone. Now, it's fitting that we talk about this debate today, being Teachers' Day. And Mr. Speaker, we know that teachers are an essential part of our education system. I have a lot of respect for a lot of teachers. Had a good bunch of teachers myself over the years, and I know my children themselves, without good quality teachers, wouldn't be where they're at today, as would most kids in the province, actually. And Mr. Speaker, if we know what goes on in the province, and we know with the cuts to the education system that have happened over the last 4 years, we know that our teachers must be excellent because they're doing the same work with a lot less money and a lot less teachers. So without these teachers doing their job, the shape of our society would be different. We in the PC caucus believe in a strong education system is vital part to our economy, our province, and our way of living. The education for young people is simply the most essential thing for our future. But Mr. Speaker, what we've been seeing is some of our future is moving away. You know, we have an obligation to ensure the state of our education system is better off when we leave office than we entered it. And I heard a member of this House just recently, Mr. Speaker, you might know the gentleman who said there was 3 reasons he went into politics. And they were his 3 children. But now he has 7 reasons because he has 4 grandchildren as well. So we obviously share the values that education is essential in society. And sometimes we wonder, we ask questions if that's the actual values that the NDP share as well. We believe the small class sizes in the early years are essential, and that's essential to creating proper learning environment. And we've seen last year, when the school year started, that they had to hire temporary teachers to fix a problem of overcrowding in our classroom. Now, Mr. Speaker, this disrupted a lot of classrooms. I know I spoke to parents at the time and teachers at the time that the children got used to certain teachers. It took a month and a half, we were into the school year, and those teachers then had to end up taking on new children, or they had to put a new teacher in front of some of these children, which took another month and a half for those kids to get comfortable, which impacted on their learning ability. And this disrupted more than just the teachers, it disrupted the students, the parents, and the communities as a whole. And you know, Mr. Speaker, we actually introduced a bill that would cap students at 25 in the grades primary to 3. And by doing that, we would know at the start of the year that our classrooms would be stable. Our classrooms would have the same teacher in them, and children would get comfortable early off, and the learning process would begin. When budgets need to be reined in, we believe that cutting from the top is the proper way, and decreased spending. We know that the Department of Education has a large staff, yet we've heard that the majority of the cuts, 65 million, have been done at the classroom level. Well, actually, last year, the Chignecto board had decided to cut a lot of its librarians, so children wouldn't have the ability to do that, into the library and learn that way. We also believe that education is an investment in our future. It's widely known that for every dollar spent on the frontline services, returns between $9 and $14. Not to mention what it will cost in lost opportunity. And Mr. Speaker, we can assure, or can assume, that every dollar cut from this investment costs future Nova Scotians between $9 and $14. This is not the system we want to leave for our children. We want to leave a system that's healthy and vibrant so that our children learn the skills needed to survive in today's world. We will work with the municipalities and the communities and families to create the right conditions. We've seen the attack on rural schools, and obviously we don't share those views. Mr. Speaker, we would not download the cost of municipalities for our education system. And we just heard the minister talk about the NDP and the MOU that they ripped up, that we've heard it's been ripped up between the municipalities and the province because we said they couldn't afford it. Now, Mr. Speaker, we heard that there was an out clause in that MOU, and they simply used the out clause because they couldn't afford it. And I hear the member from Guysborough Sheet Harbour talking about taxpayers. I guess he hasn't been around here the last, well, I've been here 2 years, and all we've heard about is taxpayers' money being spent on places like Daewoo, Irving, Bowater. Not that we're against that, Mr. Speaker, but if it's the taxpayers' dollars that's important, I think educating our children should be important as well. And Mr. Speaker, if it's all about money, then we should look at how we're spending that money. At the time, the Minister of Service Nova Scotia Municipal Relations said the province of Nova Scotia has not added a single nickel to the cost that municipalities must bear. Now, Mr. Speaker, I have an article here that I will table that shows that that's not the case. Many municipalities would argue on that statement as well. I know the CBRM has argued that statement because I've been there when it's been argued. I'm told it's 2 million. I hear 7 million in the background. It's unfortunate that when this government looks to make cuts, the first place they looked was the front line of education and healthcare. Now, Mr. Speaker, that's where our investments do the most good. Investing in our children and investing in the early years makes them better able to do the math as such when they get older. Maybe the downloading of these costs help the bottom line of the government, but it means municipalities are making cuts and compromises, or they have to raise taxes. And Mr. Speaker, no municipality wants to raise taxes. Nobody else wants to raise taxes. Nobody wants to pay extra taxes. But we had to cut services in Cape Breton, Mr. Speaker, because they had this downloading and they had to put money elsewhere. Mr. Speaker, municipalities have their own issues. In fact, we have recently announced that we'd encourage municipalities to develop local resources, to keep those resource royalties so they can improve the education system, they can improve the structures, the other areas that improve employment in that area. And Mr. Speaker, if we had that, maybe that money could be spent towards education. But right now we don't have that. And it's important that we make sure our education system is fully funded so that our children learn to reach the potential they could possibly reach. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to congratulate the members on their debate tonight. That ends the late debate. We are now adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. We now stand adjourned.